Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was just another Friday night at the Pizza Hut on the outskirts of town, a small, dimly lit location that most people passed without a second thought. The staff, a skeleton crew of college students, had grown used to the mundane rhythm of orders, toppings, and the constant beeping of the ovens. But that night, something happened that none of them would ever forget. Megan, a new employee, was closing up alone. Most of the other staff had already gone home, leaving her to wipe down tables and restock napkins. Around midnight, the lights flickered briefly, but she brushed it off as the usual electrical quirks of an old building. She went into the walk-in freezer to grab more pepperoni, and that's when she noticed it. Faint, wet footprints across the floor, leading from the prep area to the back door. She froze, thinking maybe one of her coworkers had forgotten something. But the door was locked, and the parking lot was empty. She told herself it was nothing and continued cleaning, but the feeling of being watched grew heavier with every passing minute. Then the phone started ringing, dozens of calls at once, but when she answered, there was only silence. She hung up, thinking it was a prank, but when she returned to the prep counter, she found the dough she had left out had been shaped into something wrong. The crusts weren't round. They were twisted, grotesque, almost like they had been pressed by human hands in a frenzy. Trying to calm herself, she finished her cleaning and went to the storage room to check the stock. That's when she saw it. A man crouched in the shadows, his face hidden beneath a hood, holding a pizza cutter that gleamed in the dim light. She screamed, and he vanished. The sound of footsteps echoed through the empty dining area, moving impossibly fast from table to table. When she finally made it to the front door, it was as if the locks themselves had disappeared, and she had to push her way through to escape into the empty parking lot. The next day, the manager found her sitting in her car, trembling, refusing to go back inside. When the building was inspected, the CCTV footage from the night before had been wiped clean. Every camera, every angle, erased. But some of the staff who had come in earlier claimed they could still smell something off in the kitchen. The scent of burnt dough mixed with something metallic, almost like blood. Weeks later, Megan quit, but she never forgot the quiet voice she had heard whispering her name as she ran out of the back door, a voice that sounded like it had come from inside the ovens themselves. A few employees who had stayed behind that night reported strange things too. Boxes of pizza being rearranged on their own, the dough twisting into unnatural shapes again, and the feeling of someone, or something, watching them from the corners of the dining room. To this day, that Pizza Hut stands empty, its neon sign flickering late at night, and locals whisper about the place where employees claim the pizza isn't the only thing being baked. Some say if you go there after midnight, you can hear faint scraping sounds from the kitchen, like something kneading dough, but not by human hands. And some, like Megan, never return.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 2.
The night it happened, I was 19 and working the closing shift at a Pizza Hut just off the highway. It was one of those locations that never quite went quiet. Tractor trailers sighing past, neon buzzing, the smell of grease baked so deep into the walls you could taste it even after you clocked out. I'm telling this now because people still ask why that store shut down without explanation 3 months later. Corporate blamed plumbing. The truth never made it past the back door. We closed at midnight, but the orders didn't slow until 11:40. The last ticket printed with a shrill cry that echoed in the empty dining room. One large meat lover's carry-out. Name on the ticket, Nene. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the note beneath it, typed in all caps like someone was shouting through the screen, cut into 6 slices. Do not touch after oven. My manager, Ron, laughed when he saw it. People are weird, he said, sliding the pie into the oven. The bell dinged. The pizza came out perfect, bubbling cheese, pepperoni cups glistening. Ron cut it, boxed it, and set it on the warming shelf. We waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The store felt wrong in that way you only notice when you're alone somewhere that's usually loud. The soda machine hissed. The fluorescent lights flickered, one of them making a faint clicking sound like a watch counting down. I checked the front windows. The parking lot was empty, except for a white sedan idling under the far light. Its headlights were off, engine running. At 12:07, the door chimed. A man walked in wearing a dark hoodie pulled low. He didn't look at the menu. He didn't look at us. He went straight to the counter and said, "I'm here for the 6th slice." Ron slid the box toward him. "That'll be." The man put his hand flat on the lid. His fingers were long and pale, nails chewed to the quick. "Don't open it," he said quietly. His voice was calm in a way that made my stomach knot. Ron froze. The man paid in cash, exact change. He picked up the box and left. The white sedan rolled out of the lot without turning on its headlights. "Creep," Ron muttered, trying to laugh it off. He told me to finish the floors while he did the counts in the office. I remember the mop water smelled faintly sweet, like something spoiled. At 12:30, the back door banged open. We weren't expecting anyone. Deliveries were done. Trash run was over. I looked up from the sink just in time to see a delivery driver from the earlier shift stumble inside. His face was gray, eyes wide. He tried to speak and couldn't. When he finally did, the words came out wrong, like he was choking on them. "He's in the car," he said. "He's still breathing." Ron rushed out of the office. "What are you talking about?" The driver grabbed Ron's shirt. "Sit at the pizza, the white car." He opened it. We ran. The sedan was pulled into the darkest corner of the lot. The trunk was open. Inside was a man, bound at the wrists and ankles with duct tape, a gag stuffed into his mouth. His chest rose and fell in shallow, panicked gasps. On his stomach sat the pizza box. The lid was open. The pizza was gone. In its place were 6 slices of something else, arranged with care, steam still curling upward. The smell hit me first. Iron and bile and something sweet. I remember thinking absurdly that it looked like the cheese had melted wrong. Then my brain caught up. There was a note tucked into the corner of the box, written on a napkin in red marker. "Thank you for not touching." Sirens came. Statements were taken. The man in the trunk lived. He had no idea why he'd been taken, only that he'd been driving home when someone flagged him down with a flat tire. He said the man never spoke, just smiled and pointed to the trunk. The police asked us everything. Names, descriptions. They took the footage from the cameras. The front cameras had glitched at 11:41 and come back at 12:10. The lot camera showed the sedan arriving, idling, leaving. The trunk camera had been disabled weeks earlier during a storm and never fixed. They never found the man who ordered the pizza. After that night, orders with notes started printing again. Not every night, just often enough. "Do not cut. Leave whole. Extra box. No receipt." Each time Ron canceled them. Corporate said it was prank traffic. He didn't believe that. Neither did I. One night, weeks later, I stayed late to help clean the walk-in. The hum of the cooler wrapped around us like a held breath. As we stacked dough trays, the printer at the front screamed to life. Ron stared at the ticket when we walked out. His face went slack. "It's the same," he whispered. The note read, "You can touch this one." We shut the store early. The next day, the locks were changed. 3 months later, the place was boarded up. The sign came down in the middle of the night. No announcement, no reason given. I still can't smell melted cheese without thinking of steam rising in a dark trunk. And sometimes when I order pizza and the driver asks me to sign the receipt, I notice the way their hands shake. I wonder what notes they've seen. And I always check the box before I touch it.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 3.
It was a busy Friday night at a Pizza Hut in a small Midwestern town, the kind of place where locals stopped in after work, families crowded around tables, and the smell of cheese and tomato sauce hung heavy in the air. Emma, a 22-year-old college student, had just started her shift as a delivery driver. She had heard stories from coworkers about strange occurrences in the store, ingredients going missing, unexplained cold spots in the kitchen, but she laughed them off. Ghost stories, she thought, just tales to scare the new hires. The night started like any other. Orders flew in, phones rang incessantly, and the kitchen worked frantically to keep up. Emma's first delivery was routine, just a few blocks away, but the second one to an old, dimly lit apartment complex felt different. When she pulled up, the building looked deserted. No lights, no signs of life. She shrugged and stepped out, carrying the pizza bag that now seemed heavier than it should. As she approached the apartment door, She noticed scratches along the frame, deep and jagged, like something had tried to claw its way inside. She knocked, waited, no response. She tried calling the number, but the line was dead. That's when she heard it, a faint whisper, almost like a voice calling her name from inside the apartment. Emma froze. Her heart pounded in her chest. But curiosity, and perhaps a sense of responsibility, pushed her forward. She stepped inside, the air thick and musty. The lights were off, but the glow from the hallway streetlights cast long, eerie shadows across the floor. The apartment was empty. Not a single person, not a single piece of furniture except for a small dining table. And on that table, a Pizza Hut box, the same kind she carried. The box was open, and inside the pizza was gone, but there was a message scrawled in a sticky, dark substance along the cardboard. "You delivered to me." Emma's stomach churned. She ran out of the apartment, slammed the door behind her, and bolted to her car. When she got back to the store, her manager noticed her pale, shaking figure. She told him what had happened. He frowned, oddly serious, and asked which apartment it was. Emma gave him the number. He froze, whispered, "That apartment has been vacant for over 10 years, since the fire." A fire that had started in the kitchen during a pizza delivery incident. Several people had died in that building. Terrified, Emma thought the night was over. But it wasn't. Over the next week, she noticed strange things at the store. Boxes of pizza left open, toppings moved around, ingredients that were fresh yesterday suddenly rotting. Employees reported hearing footsteps in the kitchen when no one was there. The sound of knives scraping against countertops, and cold gusts of air that would make the lights flicker. Emma kept seeing the same thing, a shadowy figure standing at the end of the dining area, watching her. One night, after closing, she stayed late to clean the store. As she walked through the empty dining area, she heard the unmistakable voice again, low and angry, whispering, "Why did you deliver it?" She spun around, but no one was there. The temperature dropped drastically, and she could see her own breath in the cold. On the counter, another Pizza Hut box had appeared, open, the pizza gone, and written inside in the same dark substance, "Next time, it's yours." Emma quit the very next day. The store never replaced her shift, and management quietly moved locations months later. But employees who stayed tell stories about deliveries vanishing into thin air, boxes appearing on counters when no one ordered them, and the same whispering voice that Emma heard, now echoing across the empty restaurant at night. Some say if you work there long enough, you might hear it too, calling your name from the kitchen, demanding you deliver. Again. Even today, locals avoid that part of town after dark, and some swear they see a figure in the Pizza Hut uniform standing in the window of the abandoned building, staring, waiting for the next driver foolish enough to bring a pizza to a place that should never receive deliveries.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 4.
It was a late Friday night, and the Pizza Hut on the edge of town was nearly empty. Most of the staff had left hours ago, leaving only Jenna, a young delivery driver, and Mark, the closing manager, to handle the last few orders. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flickering occasionally, and the smell of burnt dough lingered in the air. It was one of those nights where everything felt off, but neither of them could put their finger on why. The phone rang, jarring in the silence. Mark answered, expecting another late-night pizza order. The voice on the other end was strange, soft, almost whispering, and barely intelligible. They asked for a special delivery to a rundown apartment on the outskirts of town. Mark hesitated, but not wanting to lose the sale, told Jenna to take the order. As Jenna drove through the dark streets, the air grew colder, and the fog thickened, curling around the streetlights like living fingers. The apartment complex looked abandoned, windows cracked, paint peeling, and a faint metallic smell hung in the air. She called up to the apartment number, but no one answered. The door creaked open on its own when she knocked. Her stomach sank. Something was wrong. Inside, the apartment was eerily silent, furniture covered in dusty sheets. A single candle burned on a table, its flame trembling. She set the pizza down, and then she saw it, scratches along the walls leading to a closed bedroom door. She felt compelled to look, and when she slowly pushed it open, the room was empty, except for a mirror. On its surface, smeared in a dark, sticky substance, were words, "You should have left." Heart racing, Jenna spun around. The apartment felt alive, the shadows stretching toward her. She ran back to the door, locked. The candle flickered out, plunging her into darkness. She heard footsteps behind her, slow and deliberate circling. Panicked, she smashed the pizza box against the door, finally breaking the lock, and ran. When she returned to Pizza Hut, the store was still quiet, but Mark was pale, staring at the phone. He held a receipt for the order she had just delivered. The thing was, it had been placed hours ago, before she even left the store. And the caller, the number, didn't exist. That night, Jenna quit. But the story didn't end there. Weeks later, Mark found another receipt on his desk. Same apartment, same special delivery. No one called, no one ordered. And every now and then, late at night, the phone would ring with that same whispering voice, asking for a special delivery that no one alive could receive. People say that if you work the late shift at that Pizza Hut, sometimes when the lights flicker just right, you can see scratches appearing on the walls, inside the store. Not from anyone living, not yet.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 5.
It started on a slow Tuesday night at a Pizza Hut in a quiet suburban area. The store was mostly empty, just the manager, a couple of delivery drivers, and the kitchen staff. Around 10 p.m., the phone rang, a local number, familiar enough no one thought twice. A man ordered a large pizza for delivery, nothing unusual. The driver, a young guy named Marcus, grabbed the order and left. Minutes passed, then the driver returned, pale and shaking. He said the house was dark, the door slightly ajar, and the smell inside was unbearable. The man who answered the phone wasn't there. The pizza was untouched, but the place had a foul stench, like rotting meat mixed with something chemical. Marcus insisted they call the police, but the manager tried to calm him down. Not long after, another order came through from the same number. This time, it was for 2 large pizzas. A different driver went, and he never came back. Phones in the store started ringing off the hook, but when anyone picked up, there was only static. Then came the knocking. At first, it was soft, like someone tapping on the window. Soon it grew louder, more insistent. Every employee swore they could hear breathing behind them when they turned around, but no one was there. By midnight, the staff were terrified. Surveillance footage showed something that made their blood run cold. The first driver leaving the house appeared on camera again, inside the house, standing silently at the window, looking directly at the camera, though he had supposedly never returned. The second driver's car was seen parked outside, but the driver was nowhere to be found. They called the police, who went to the address. What they found was worse than anyone could imagine. The house had been abandoned for years, condemned and boarded up. Inside, there were remnants of meals, old pizza boxes, and stains on the floor that didn't match anything normal, shapes and patterns that looked disturbingly deliberate, almost like someone had been waiting. The officers found no trace of the drivers or the person who ordered the pizza, only the lingering, choking smell that Marcus had described. The Pizza Hut closed shortly after, but locals still whisper about the calls that keep coming from that same number. Some claim that if you answer, you'll hear your own voice ordering a pizza, then footsteps coming closer, even when you're alone. Marcus never returned to delivery work. Staff who worked that night report hearing strange tapping on windows and doors long after the building was shuttered, and one swears the number calls them at exactly 10:03 p.m. every Tuesday. It's said that whoever answers the phone becomes the next delivery, whether they want to or not. No one knows why or how, only that the pizza always gets delivered, and sometimes it comes back with more than you ordered.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 6.
I worked at a Pizza Hut in a dying strip mall off the highway, the kind of place that still had a red shingled roof and carpet that never quite lost the smell of grease and bleach. This was in the early 2000s, back when the dining room still mattered, and we closed at midnight on weekdays. What happened there is something I don't talk about unless someone insists that nothing truly horrifying can happen under fluorescent lights and a corporate logo. We used to joke that the building was wrong, not haunted in a fun way, just wrong. The back hallway to the walk-in freezer felt longer than it should have been. Sounds carried strangely like whispers bouncing off tile long after the source was gone. The oven vents groaned at night like someone breathing through clenched teeth. We blamed exhaustion, minimum wage, and the fact that most of us were teenagers working too late. One Tuesday night, business was dead. It was raining hard enough that the parking lot lights smeared into yellow puddles on the asphalt. By 11:30, it was just me, a shift manager named Chris, and one driver waiting on a last delivery. Chris sent the driver home early and told me to start breaking down the line. He went into the office to do paperwork and smoke with the door cracked. I was scraping cheese out of the prep bins when the phone rang. The caller ID just said, "Unknown," which wasn't unusual. I answered with the script. On the other end was a man who didn't say hello. He just breathed. Slow, wet breaths, like he was holding the phone too close to his mouth. I asked if he wanted to place an order. The breathing stopped. Then he said my name. I hadn't given it. I told myself it was a prank, someone from school messing with me. I asked who it was. He ignored the question and asked what time we locked the doors. I didn't answer. He laughed, a short, sharp sound, and said, "You always lock them late." The line went dead. I stood there staring at the phone until Chris yelled from the office to stop spacing out. I didn't tell him. I wish I had. I went back to cleaning, trying to shake the feeling that the kitchen felt crowded even though I was alone. A few minutes later, the phone rang again, same breathing. This time he said, "Check the freezer." I hung up so hard the receiver bounced. I tried to laugh it off. Walk-in freezers are creepy by default. You step inside, the door thumps shut, and the world goes quiet except for the fan. I told myself I was being stupid and pushed the door open. The air hit me like a slap. Boxes of dough and wings were stacked neatly like always, nothing out of place. Then I noticed the light inside the freezer was already on. We were religious about turning it off. I backed out and shut the door. My hands were shaking. I went to get Chris, but when I reached the office, the door was closed and the light was off. I knocked. No answer. I opened it. Empty chair. Ashtray full, still warm. His car was still outside. That's when I heard it. A low thud from the dining room, followed by the scrape of a chair. I grabbed the pizza cutter because it was the closest thing that felt like a weapon. The dining room lights were dimmed for closing. Chairs were stacked on tables like silhouettes of people with their knees pulled to their chests. Near the salad bar, one chair was upright. Someone was sitting in it. He was wearing a Pizza Hut uniform. Old style, faded logo. The name tag said Tris, but the face was wrong. Too pale, eyes sunk deep like they hadn't slept in weeks. His mouth stretched into a smile that showed gums more than teeth. "I told you not to check the freezer alone," he said in Chris's voice. I screamed and ran back into the kitchen, slipping on the wet floor. I heard footsteps behind me, too many of them, slapping tile. I locked myself in the bathroom and climbed onto the toilet, phone shaking in my hands as I called 911. While it rang, I heard knocking on the door, slow and polite. "Open up," Chris's voice said. "We still have to close." The knocking turned into pounding. The lights flickered. Over the roar of the oven fans, I heard the freezer door slam shut again and again, like someone being thrown into it repeatedly. The police arrived in under 5 minutes. To me, it felt like hours. They found me hysterical on the bathroom floor. The dining room was empty. No one in the freezer. No extra footprints. They found Chris in the walk-in cooler behind the kitchen, not the freezer. He'd been dead for at least an hour, crushed between stacks of soda syrup boxes. The coroner said it was an accident. Boxes shift. People slip. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. The freezer light was on, and on the office desk, under Chris's paperwork, was a delivery receipt printed at 11:37 p.m., 3 minutes after the first call. No address, no phone number, just an order for one large meat lover's pizza. Under special instructions, it said, "Leave the door unlocked."
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 7.
I used to work the closing shift at a Pizza Hut off a 2-lane highway, the kind of place people only stopped at because it was the last lighted building for miles. This happened in 2016, and I've never told it publicly because even now it doesn't sound real when I say it out loud. But it happened, and every person who was there that night quit within a month. We closed at midnight, but the dining room was always empty by 10. After that, it was just delivery orders and the low hum of the ovens. The lights in the back flickered constantly, and the walk-in freezer door never sealed quite right. You'd hear it knock sometimes, just a dull thud, like someone leaning on it from the inside. The manager said it was air pressure. We joked about it until the night it opened on its own. There were 4 of us working: me, the shift manager named Carla, a cook named Dennis, and a driver named Mike. Around 11:20 p.m., the phone rang. Carla answered it while counting the register. She frowned, said nothing for a long time, then hung up without taking an order. When I asked what that was about, she said the line was dead, but she looked shaken, like she'd just been yelled at. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same number, according to the caller ID. This time, I answered. There was breathing on the other end. Slow, wet breathing, like the phone was pressed right up against someone's mouth. I asked if they wanted to place an order. The breathing stopped and a man's voice said, very calmly, "You're still open. Good." Then the line went dead. We laughed it off, because that's what you do when you're stuck in a building full of shadows and sharp knives. But 10 minutes later, Mike came back from a delivery, pale and sweating. He said there was a car parked behind the building with its lights off. He thought nothing of it at first, but when he walked past it, someone inside knocked on the window from the inside. He never saw a face. Carla told him to call the non-emergency line if the car was still there when he left again. She locked the back door and told us to finish closing early. That's when the freezer door opened. It didn't swing open fast. It creaked slow and deliberate until it stopped halfway. Cold air spilled across the floor, carrying a smell I can't forget. It wasn't rotten food. It was metallic and sour, like old blood trapped in ice. Dennis went to shut it and froze. Inside the freezer, stacked neatly between boxes of dough, were pizza boxes. Old ones. The logo was wrong, outdated by years, and the dates written on them were all handwritten. He pulled one out, hands shaking, and opened it. Inside was a baked pizza, gray with freezer burn, and pressed into the cheese were fingerprints. Too many of them, small ones. Like someone had used their hands to knead the pizza after it came out of the oven. Carla slammed the box shut and told us to get out. She said we were closing immediately. That's when the phone rang again. This time, all the lights went out except the red exit sign and the glow from the ovens. The phone rang and rang until Carla answered it, screaming for whoever it was to stop. She went quiet as she listened. "He says he already ate," she whispered, covering the receiver. "He says it's our turn now." Something hit the front window hard enough to rattle the glass. Then again, slow and rhythmic, like knocking with a fist. We could see a shape outside, tall and too thin, pressing its face against the glass. I couldn't make out features, just the outline of a mouth stretched wide, smiling. The back door handle started to turn. We ran. We didn't grab our stuff. We didn't clock out. We shoved past each other through the emergency exit and didn't stop running until we reached the gas station down the road. When the police arrived, they found the Pizza Hut unlocked, empty, and spotless. No old boxes in the freezer. No car behind the building. No signs of forced entry. The only thing they found was a single pizza sitting on the prep table, still warm. It had 4 slices missing. Pizza Hut shut that location down 3 months later after multiple complaints about phones ringing after closing, freezers opening on their own, and drivers reporting a man trying to climb into their cars during deliveries. The building is still there, abandoned, with the sign taken down.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 8.
I worked the closing shift at a Pizza Hut just off the interstate. The kind of place that never really sleeps because the highway keeps spitting people out at all hours. This happened in 2016, and I'm writing it now because I still wake up smelling burned dough and bleach. That store had a back door that faced a narrow service alley. During the day, it was just dumpsters and delivery trucks. At night, it felt like a throat. Sound went in and didn't come back out. The manager, Ron, always said to keep it locked, but the lock was old and sometimes stuck. We'd prop it with a milk crate when we were taking trash out so it wouldn't slam shut and trap us. On my second week, I learned why Ron hated that door. It was just after midnight, a Tuesday, slow night. 2 dine-in tables, 1 delivery on the board, ovens humming like tired animals. I was scraping pans when I heard a knock. Not on the front glass, on the back door. 3 slow knocks, like someone being polite. I froze. Nobody knocked back there. Deliveries came through the front. Ron looked at me, eyebrows raised. "Probably the truck," he said, even though the truck came Thursdays. He grabbed the mop handle and told me to stay put. The knocking came again, harder this time. I could hear breathing through the metal. Ron cracked the door an inch. The alley light flickered, and I saw a man standing too close to the door, so close his forehead nearly touched it. He was smiling, wide and wet. He wore a Pizza Hut shirt, red and greasy, the logo crooked like it had been torn off and sewn back on. The name tag said Eric. "We're closed," Ron said. The man leaned forward and whispered, "I know." Ron slammed the door and slid the bolt. We all stood there listening as the man laughed softly, like he was embarrassed for us. Then his footsteps retreated slow, unhurried. We called the police. They came, shined lights in the alley, shrugged. No cameras back there. No report filed because no crime. Ron told us to forget it, but he kept the back door locked for the rest of the night. A week later, I found the shirt. I was taking trash out before close, the milk crate wedged like always. The dumpster lid banged and something red fluttered at my feet. A Pizza Hut shirt, folded neatly, clean except for a dark stain near the collar that smelled like pennies. The name tag was missing. I told Ron. He went pale and told me to throw it away. I asked him who Eric was. Ron stared at the ovens, not at me. "We had an Eric," he said, "years ago." That's all he would say. After that, little things started happening. Orders printed without being placed. A large pepperoni, well done, extra sauce, always the same. The ticket would spit out around 12:30 a.m., and when we checked the system, there was no phone number, no online order, just a blank line where the customer should be. Ron made us cook them anyway. "Corporate audits waste," he said, but his voice shook. We'd box the pizza and set it on the heat rack. 10 minutes later, it would be gone. No door chime, no footsteps, just gone. One night I followed it. The ticket printed. The pizza vanished. I told myself it was a prank, that one of the drivers was messing with us. I grabbed a flashlight and slipped into the back hall. The air was colder there, like the freezers were breathing wrong. The back door stood open, the milk crate tipped over. In the alley, the pizza box sat on the ground, open. The slices were gone, but the grease pattern was wrong, smeared in long strokes like fingers had dragged through it. I heard chewing. He was sitting on the curb, the man from before. The shirt was back on him, cleaner now, stretched tight over his shoulders. He chewed slowly, eyes closed, savoring. When he saw me, he swallowed and smiled. "Tell Ron I said thanks," he said. He always remembers. I ran. The police came again. They found nothing again. Ron closed early for a few nights. Corporate didn't care about feelings. He reopened. The orders continued. Then the smell started, not bad at first, just a sweetness under the bleach, like rotting fruit. It clung to the back hall, the walk-in, the mop sink. Customers complained. Ron doubled the cleaning, then tripled it. The smell didn't go away. It thickened. One Friday during a rush, the ovens died. Dead silence. Ron swore and went to check the breaker. He never came back. We found him in the walk-in an hour later, after the rush had thinned and the smell had become unbearable. He was sitting against the shelves, eyes open, lips blue. On the floor beside him was a stack of old time cards, damp and curled. At the top was one with the name Eric, punched in every day for a month after the date he'd been fired. The coroner said heart attack. Corporate sent flowers. The store stayed open. I took Ron's shifts for a while. Needed the money. That's when I found the wall. Behind the dry storage shelves, there was a section of cinder block that sounded hollow. The smell was strongest there. I scraped at the mortar with a putty knife until a brick came loose. Inside was a cavity just big enough to kneel in. There were bones. Not a whole body, pieces, wrapped in plastic bags stamped with old Pizza Hut logos, the kind they stopped using years ago. A name tag lay on top, rusted pin, the letters scratched out. Eric. I stumbled back, gagging, and that's when the back door slammed shut. He stood in the hall, blocking the light. The shirt was wrong now. The logo stretched over something that moved beneath it, like hands pressing out. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said gently. Ron promised. He stepped closer. The floor felt sticky under my shoes, like grease that never cooled. I screamed, and the ovens roared back to life, drowning me out. I don't remember getting out. I remember sunlight and a cop asking me my name. They tore down that wall. They found what was left. The investigation dragged on, but nothing stuck. No one could explain how a man could keep clocking in after he was bricked up behind storage. The store closed for renovations. A year later, it reopened. Fresh paint, new manager, new locks. Different smell at first. I don't eat there anymore. I don't eat pizza at all. Sometimes late at night, my phone buzzes with a notification from a delivery app I deleted years ago. Large pepperoni, well done, extra sauce, no address.
Everybody like and subscribe and praise the bell icon. Story number 9.
I worked at a Pizza Hut just off the highway when I was 19. It was the kind with the red roof, the low lights, the smell of old grease that never really left your clothes. People think horror happens in abandoned places, but it doesn't. It happens where the lights are still on. I was a closer. That meant mopping floors at midnight, taking out trash, and locking the doors while the ovens ticked and cooled behind me. Most nights were boring. Drunk customers, delivery drivers complaining, the occasional fight in the parking lot. Nothing I couldn't handle. Until the night the phone wouldn't stop ringing. It started at 10:47 p.m., right before the dinner rush died. The caller ID just said, "Private." I answered with the usual greeting. No one spoke. I could hear breathing, slow and wet, like someone leaning too close to the receiver. I asked if they wanted to place an order. The line went dead. A minute later, it rang again. Same thing, breathing. This time I stayed quiet. After about 10 seconds, a voice whispered, "Still there?" Then it laughed, sharp and short, and hung up. My manager told me to ignore it. Prank calls happened all the time. But the phone kept ringing, every few minutes, always the same number, always breathing. Sometimes the caller would say my name. I never told them my name. By the 5th call, I felt that itchy pressure between my shoulders, the feeling you get when someone is standing behind you. I turned around. The dining room was empty, chairs stacked, lights dimmed. The windows reflected the inside of the store back at me, warped and yellow. The next call came while I was alone at the counter. The ovens hummed. The phone rang. I picked up. "I can see you," the voice said, calm, certain. I hung up and went to the back to check the doors. The delivery entrance was locked. The freezer door was shut. The bathroom empty. I told myself it was some kid in the parking lot messing with me. Then the phone rang again. "I don't like it when you walk away," the voice said. "It makes it harder to watch." My manager finally told me to unplug the phone. I did. The silence that followed was worse. No ringing, no ovens now, just the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights. At 11:30, the delivery driver left. My manager clocked out early because his girlfriend was waiting in the car. He promised I'd be fine for the last half hour. He locked the front doors behind him. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home echoed through the empty store. I was alone. I started mopping the dining room, trying not to look at the windows. That's when I heard the phone ring. I froze. I had unplugged it. The ringing came again, echoing from the back office, slow, patient. I stood there with the mop dripping onto the tiles, my heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. I walked to the office. The phone was still unplugged. The cord lay on the desk like a dead snake. The ringing didn't stop. It was coming from the freezer. I stood in front of the freezer door, my hand hovering over the handle. The ringing stopped. In its place, I heard breathing. From inside. I told myself it was the compressor. Old building, old sounds. I backed away. Then the freezer door handle twitched. I ran. I locked myself in the office and called the police on my cell phone. I whispered, afraid whoever it was could hear me. While I waited, my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "Still there?" Another message followed before I could respond. "You forgot to lock the back door." I stared at the screen, my stomach turning cold. I had checked that door. I was sure of it. Something heavy hit the office door. Once. Twice. The handle rattled. A voice on the other side whispered my name, slow, like it was tasting it. The police arrived 10 minutes later. Those 10 minutes stretched into something endless. The banging stopped. The whispering stopped. When the officers searched the store, they found nothing at first. No broken locks, no forced entry. Then one of them called me over to the freezer. Inside, behind stacked boxes of dough, They found a narrow space where someone could stand. The floor was scuffed. There was a phone on the ground, its screen cracked, its battery dead. It wasn't ours. The officer asked how long I'd been getting the calls. I told him. He went quiet. Then he said something I still hear when I try to sleep. We've had reports of someone hiding in restaurants after close, watching employees, calling the store from inside to see how they react. They never caught him. The cameras had been broken for weeks. The back door lock was old and unreliable. The next day, Pizza Hut told me the store would be closed for renovations. They offered me a transfer. I didn't take it. Sometimes late at night, my phone will ring from a private number. I never answer, but I listen to the voicemail. It's always the same, breathing, and then a whisper. Still there?